have another 55 minutes on Business Morning here on Channels Television. Good morning and welcome. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Well, let's do business, starting with oil prices. It fell more than $1 on Tuesday, extending the previous day's slide as the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank rattled equities markets and sparked fear about a fresh financial crisis. Brent crude futures were down 87 cents. That's over 1% at $79.90 a barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures dropped also more than 1%, 1.1%. That's 85 cents to $73.93 a barrel. Brent fell to its lowest since early January, while WTI dropped to its lowest since December. The sudden shutdown of SVB Financial triggered concerns about risks to other banks resulting from the U.S. Federal Reserve's sharp interest rate hikes over the last year. It also spurred speculations on whether the central bank might slow the pace of its monetary tightening. U.S. authorities launched emergency measures on Sunday to shore up confidence in the banking system after fears of contagion from the failure of Silicon Valley Bank led to a sell-off in U.S. assets at the end of last week, and state regulators closed New York-based Signature Bank on Sunday. Well, we come to Nigeria now. The Central Bank of Nigeria has said finally that the old 200, 500 and 1,000 naira notes remain legal tender alongside the redesigned notes until December the 31st. In a statement signed by the CBN's Acting Director of Corporate Communications, Mr. Isa Abdulmunim, the Apex Bank says that this is in compliance with the established tradition of obedience to court orders and sustenance of the rule of law. The Apex Bank statement comes a few hours after the presidency said the CBN had no reason not to comply with court orders. On March the 3rd, the Supreme Court had invalidated the Naira redesign policy introduced by the CBN, citing a defective timing and implementation. The CBN asked all concerned to conform to this directive. Meanwhile, some good news came out of that. Because of that cash scarcity which has hit the country in recent times, citizens have turned more and more to e-payments as means of completing financial transactions. According to latest data from the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System, e-payments usage had increased 41.29% since January, with over 901 million users in February against 638 million users in January. However, NIBS adds that value of cashless transactions have fallen to 37.67 trillion naira in February. This represents a 4.83% decrease from the 39.58 trillion naira recorded in January, and this is largely due to failed and delayed transactions, consequence of that rush to the e-payment platforms. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Labour Congress, just before the CBN spoke yesterday, had given the federal government 7 days ultimatum to address the currency crunch, as well as the fuel scarcity in parts of the country, or risk a nationwide industrial action at the expiration of the ultimatum. President of the NLC, Mr. Joe Ajero, gave the strike notice after the meeting of the Central Working Committee of the NLC. Mr. Ajero, who bemoaned the hardship faced by Nigerian workers owing to the Naira redesign policy and the federal government and the lingering fuel scarcity in parts of the country, says the union has been pushed to the wall.
The Congress wished to inform the federal government that we will no longer keep quiet to this issue of perennial fuel scarcity and arbitrary increase on petroleum products. The big one, the issue of cash crunch. The NLC is giving the federal government of Nigeria and the agencies of government, including the Central Bank of Nigeria and other banking institutions, 7 working days to address the issue of the cash crunch. If they fail to do this, at the expiration of the 7 days, Congress is directing all workers in the country to stay at home because it has become very difficult to even access 1 naira to enter vehicles to your workplace. It is difficult for you even to buy products, especially from traders who don't have banks. We have been frustrated to a level that we can no longer keep quiet.
So there's one down from the list of the NLC, that's the cash. We do hope that with this compliance from the CBN that there'll be cash and perhaps there'll be a little bit of succor to that area. But of course, we still have the field queues. I saw them when I was on my way to the office this morning. See what the NLC will do or will say if there'll be a little bit of extension because of the cash. But we'll see. We'll follow up on that story. Meanwhile, we still have a whole lot of things to face, especially we cannot lose sight of the election that comes up on Saturday. That's a couple of days where Nigerians will be choosing their governors and also the state representatives in the state houses of assembly in the different states of the federation, 28 states to be precise, where there'll be governorship election. So let's talk about expectations, and we're going to stay on this until the election. Joining us for this conversation is the Chief Executive Officer of A Better Financial, Mr. Ayodeji Bankole Olushino, joining us virtually now from Lekki. Good morning, Mr. Adeshina. Thank you so much for your time. Are you happy about this announcement from the CBN? We're going to go back, at least have our old Naira notes running side by side with the redesigned ones. Does it put a smile? Does it ease anything from your perspective?
Well, definitely. Thank you very much, Ini, for this invitation. Definitely, this is good news. It only helps things it eases things definitely at the business level, particularly for the smaller businesses, and just eases livelihood as it is. Access to more to cash and people believe in their cash, right? So I think it's just going to make things better for us.
All right, so does it, just before we go to, does it, from your perspective, take us back in the pursuit of a cashless economy, which is the ideal in the world now?
The best place is cashless, right? It costs money to ferry cash, it costs money to print cash. And we should have made a lot more progress in terms of our cashless ambition. The former CBN governor started that journey, right? This current CBN governor, in fact, took us back a while. And unfortunately, now wants to, leapfrog too quickly. It's unfortunate that this has also been read as some political undertones and all that. Cashless is good, that's where we should be, but we must carry people along. And we must then also have the infrastructure to support cashless. We're moving from, this is a cultural issue, we're moving from where people love their cash, want to handle their cash, want to just, trust their cash in their pocket. So if you're going to replace that, then you must address the underlying infrastructure. The underlying infrastructure of ensuring that when cash is when money is then transferred, money must arrive as and when due. That is the challenge that is causing the distrust in this system. That must be addressed, and that will take some time for people to then adopt. So you must give people their time. It's their money. So you must give them some time in getting used to this new culture. Fantastic time, cashless, fantastic. We must get there. But we can't get there in too much of a hurry.
All right, so now let's go to the elections. Nigerians, I think at this time, because of the extra 1 week, are still looking at the governorship candidates and thinking, who can do the job better? Who can we choose to lead this state? What do you think Nigerians should be looking out for when they're perusing the candidates who are up for governorship?
Okay, now, Ini, I am talking as I reach Bankole Olushino, not the representative of Alberta Financial Services. I am an alumni of the School of Politics, Governance, and Policy. And so I believe I am an apostle of the 3 C's. I think it's important that we take character into consideration, capacity into consideration, and competence into consideration. Those 3 C's are fundamental to choosing the type of subnational leaders that will emerge. Governance in itself is big business. We must understand that. It is big business. If we take Lagos, for instance, Lagos with a total revenue base as at 2021 of 750 billion naira, it's not a place that you want to then give to somebody who, 1, doesn't have capacity, 2, doesn't have character, 3, doesn't have the competence, right? And for all the states, for all the subnationals, even to the local government level, we as Nigerians, as people, as citizens, must start to understand that, first of all, the power is with us, and to give this power, to yield this power to anyone for leadership, we must then pass that person in terms of character, in terms of competence, and in terms of capacity.
So when you talk about capacity, for instance, would you say in the public sector, in the private sector, in the home front, where exactly are you referring to?
Again, you are taking me to very interesting things. I personally, I believe that your track record must speak for you. I have about over 25 years corporate experience. Now, I believe very much in institutional management and leadership. Institutional management and leadership. Now, that can come from a myriad of places, right? Let's start from the home front. How do you manage your wife and your children? That's the smallest institution that you're supposed to manage. If you have a wife, and if you're female, how do you manage your husband? So your spouse and the very few ones that God has committed to your hands. How do you come out on that leadership base, or on that leadership criteria? Then, in terms of professional, how have you also survived? How have you led? How have you managed things? How have you managed people? How have you managed resources that have been committed to you? Right? And that speaks a lot in terms of then you make it standing out in public to say, give me your resources, the resources of the state, the people of the state. Governance is about improving the livelihood of the people in that environment. We must understand that. We as citizens must demand from our leaders a better livelihood. Better livelihood in terms of how we live, how we transact business, and how we, go about our daily life, essentially. So for us as citizens to commit leadership to somebody or to leave our resources and our livelihood in the hands of somebody, that person had better show in some sphere that he's worthy of that responsibility.
Well, that becomes really important because yesterday we talked about internally generated revenue. For a state like Lagos, we see Lagos leading, a good one. But it still begs the question, is that the best we can do? Is Lagos done with exploring its potentials? But because even when you look at all the states in the country, we see potentials, and we keep talking about potentials and the need for states to be independent, not just going hand in hand to Abuja every month. And we see the resources and we talk about it, and it doesn't seem like those things are hidden, but getting the individuals who can actually lead the way to explore those resources for the good of the state and the people of the state actually becomes, another kettle of fish.
I think that, first of all, we as citizens must understand the power that we have as citizens. the biggest challenge in leadership or governance in Nigeria is transparency. The moment people think that you are in office, but you are not in office, if you get what I'm saying, you are in office, but you are being controlled by some other force, that in itself is a problem, because it means that the buck doesn't stop at your table. And that is what we have seen over the years, particularly in this dispensation I'm talking nationally now, for people who are not elected, but are in control. Now, it is important then as citizens or as a leader to be able to convey to people that I am the one that is responsible for how things are done in this environment, in this state, in this local government. The buck stops with me. I take the decisions, and I have the character. You can trust me with your resources. You can trust me because I am competent. You can trust me because I have the capacity. You see, in terms of comparison, we seem to look too much inwards. Lagos is the fourth wealthiest city in Africa, behind Johannesburg, Cape Town, Cairo, then you have Lagos. Now, if you look at Lagos with, other subnationals in Nigeria, with the kind of IGR that Lagos is commanding combined with FAC has even ever been more than 200 billion. IGR in 2021 was, a little over 500, more than 550, right? So if you look at Lagos in the sense comparing to other states, you'll say, oh, Lagos is doing well, is doing better, is doing that. But when you look at Lagos, aside Johannesburg, aside Cape Town, aside Cairo, let it take its place amongst the community of cities, then you will start to see that we're still lacking, we're still far behind, right? There are things like infrastructure to focus on. There are things like healthcare to focus on. There are things like education to focus on. So there's a lot going. How does Lagos, or how has Lagos in the last 6, 7, 8 to 10 years, how have they improved the livelihood of the Lagosian? That is the thing that is the question for this next election. Is a referendum on the present governor, and it's a referendum on the party that has produced the government over the time, and it's for Lagosians really to decide how we want to take that forward.
Well, talking about Lagos, of course, we saw in 2021, they led other states, as you noted there, over 202 billion. And then for 2022, with over 753 billion. But as you've noted, then how is that impacting people? And we do know that a bulk of this comes from taxes. So we'll always have the conversation of multiple taxation in Lagos, because businesses are paying, they have different levels. There's a local government, there's, the men on the street or the guys on the street. How, as a government, do you think perhaps a second term of the current administration or a new leadership when it comes to the state, what can they do differently to handle this issue of multiple taxation, but still not losing, this track record that they seem to have been holding for a couple of years now?
This is now becoming very tough questions. Taxation is a big issue anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world, people really don't want to pay taxes. Particularly in Nigeria, our tax morale is quite low, right? However, people must understand the social contract between government and citizens, and our responsibility to fund government, right? Now, the challenge, though, in a place like Lagos is the duplicity of that tax system. And particularly this also can be formal or can actually be informal. Now, in terms of taxes, legal taxes, whether from the federal government, from state government or the local government, they're really only about a little over 60 taxes that are backed by law. But in Nigeria, in Lagos rather, there is the informal levies. And I don't know, you might have come by the report, the investigative report that said that, just road users, and I'm talking, drivers and all that, alone generate about 123 billion per year to the informal collection of levies, right? Now, the moment the utilization of taxes is not transparent and is not communicated, people will feel cheated. So now, in terms of managing the system, the focus really should be how we can make the informal formal. How do we bring the informal system into a formal system? Now, once there is a formal system, then how do we ensure that we're not paying twice, either to state or to or to local? How do we ensure that there's no duplicity in that? Once there is transparency in this, and there's also communication in terms of utilization, then people might start to relate better to this culture of taxes. There's no way things are going to get better in an environment without a government being funded. Main funding is taxes, but there must be transparency on utilization of those resources. There must be a change of the culture. You see, today, people in government make it look as if they're doing you a favor. We must change that narrative. We must understand that we put you there. So when people clamor to want to take power, when citizens clamor to want to take power, it's because they want to be responsible for putting people in government. And therefore, the resources that the government is also managing belong to the people. Once there's transparency around that management, I think there will be a better attitude, towards that. And it will not affect as much the way business is done. It's just a trust system that is being breached right now, and that's what must be sorted out.
Yeah, and I guess Nigerians do have the opportunity to, look out for this at this time, because it's another opportunity to choose somebody who occupy that space, and this is your opportunity to use your power and choose who you think can handle the space best.
I can't hear you clearly. I think there's some feedback somewhere.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Looks like
I've lost you. There's some feedback somewhere, so I can't hear you clearly.
Okay. We'll just take a moment. We'll take a moment on the program, and then we'll be back. Do hold on, Mr. Lushina. We'll come back to you in a couple of minutes. You're welcome back. I apologize for that mix-up. I hope you can hear me now, Mr. Lushina. Can you hear me? I think you're muted.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Okay, so we're saying, we're talking about, this is an opportunity for Nigerians generally to, use that power, check out the details of, the candidates, and ensure that they choose someone who they think can bring freshness to not just the revenue and the tax collection, but the transparency that you referred to generally.
Absolutely. I think that, first of all, politicians must understand that political office is not a birthright. It is not an endowment. It is a matter of the people using their power to empower you for a period. We must understand that in Nigeria. That is the process of governance. This season is an opportunity to look at how the governance how governance has impacted our lives as individuals and collective as a society for the better. How has it bettered my life? Now, if the incumbent is seen to have impacted our life positively and has a promise to continue to do that, why not? Otherwise, the power is really in our hands to choose to change the person that we have empowered to lead us. Simple.
so much. We do hope that Nigerians will use that power. And that's why it's important for you to get your PVC and go out there and vote on Saturday. Thank you so much, Mr. Ayodeji Bankole-Olushina, the Chief Executive Officer of Abeta Financial, for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Thank you very much, Ini.
All right. Following that announcement by the Central Bank of Nigeria, well, as Mr. Olushina was happy, I guess a lot of people out there are happy to get that news, but we don't know how fast that's circulating or if really the old notes are back in circulation. But we have Kelly Egiga out on the streets now to tell us what's going on there, if Kelly's ready. Hello, Kelly, can you hear me? Okay. Kelly, can you hear me? All right, Kelly, if you can hear me, perhaps we'll come to you when you're ready. I can hear your atmosphere, but I cannot see or hear you. Well, up next, we'll be doing the market, beginning with the commodities market, find out what's going on there. Now that hopefully there'll be cash, perhaps some things will move faster there. Let's take a breather. We'll be back for that. Welcome back to Watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. And yes, we're going to the commodities space now. And of course, top on that list is the issue of oil prices, which has been affected by the crash of the Silicon Valley Bank. How is that affecting oil prices and affecting Nigeria? And also we have the announcement of the Central Bank of Nigeria on the usage of 500 and 1,000 naira notes, along with the redesigned notes. Hopefully, there'll be more liquid in the economy, and that would move things. But we do have Bolanle Agbaje joining us now, senior analyst with Financial Derivatives Company, in the studio. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
How is it getting here? Have you seen the 500, 1,000 naira? Are they back?
Well, I haven't seen. Hopefully by the end of today I would see. I'm not so sure. I hope the banks would release, these old notes in line with the CBN's announcement. Although it's something that should have come into the market a week ago after the Supreme Court's ruling. Yeah. But we don't know what made the CBN not say so much at that time. But
until the president came out yesterday,
yes.
And then
I'm obviously sure that they are not happy with that ruling, because it's taking them back to where the status quo in terms of changing the current naira, and obviously moving Nigeria to a cashless, slowly towards a cashless economy. But all in all we know is that if they do introduce reintroduce the old notes, it seems like currency in circulation would increase by about 20%, and that's currently at about 3.8 trillion naira. And obviously, we already have the new notes in circulation of about 600 billion naira. And that in total increases to about 3.8 trillion. And that's not necessarily great for inflation. But all in all, Nigerians are suffering at the moment. They're currently cash dependent. And just to move the economy and, from the stagnant situation it is now, I think is the best solution.
Yeah, because, if the e-payment platforms were sufficient,
adequate, yes.
I don't think a lot of people would feel the pinch, because we do see that there was a 4.83% decrease from 39.58 trillion naira recorded in January because of failed and delayed transactions.
Yes.
And, it's been tough in that area also.
Yeah.
Even the fintechs that came in,
yes.
I think they just got the pressure that they were not expecting.
The infrastructure they currently have is just not, designed for this amount of volume of transactions that we're seeing at the moment. But I guess from now till December is currently enough time to build whatever infrastructure they need. I'm sure it's not a short-term solution, but all in all, it seems like they can do something better before, they currently scrap out the old notes.
Yeah, but some people have said that. might be typical of Nigerians. When we get close to 31st of December, then we'll now start asking for an extension again.
So I think we've had more than enough time. Most countries, when they're doing this kind of currency swap, it usually ranges from about 18 months, a year to 18 months. And so we're more or less in that category. And it gives those fintechs and the banks enough time to, brace for what they've seen currently and make sure that doesn't happen by the end of the year.
But I think there are also some benefits from this. There are people who have been forced to get into the banking space because of this.
There are definitely benefits. It also reduces theft, in terms of, the kind of theft we had seen previously in previous years in Nigeria is the fact that, once you have cash or stored in your house or something, you see the insecurity increase. But in any case where you have a situation where, we're operating a cashless economy, although we do have the fraudulent activities, within the banks, but as long as, that space is secure, and I'm sure the banks they're capable of doing that, because in major developed economies, you barely hold cash. So many countries that have moved forward in terms of, creating a cashless economy. So it benefits, it's a beneficial situation for us. And I think at some point, Nigeria definitely has to get to that.
We'll have to go back there. I mean, but when you talk about, a lot of developed economies do not handle cash. I remember the United States at this time, it's not a very good time for them with the crash of the Silicon Valley Bank. And a lot of people are losing confidence in banks.
Losing confidence because of that contagion effect. Everyone is so scared about what happened in 2008 because it affected the whole world economy. And nobody wants to, find themselves in that space anymore. So that also has affected the equities markets and even the oil market. And ordinarily, it should favor the oil market in terms of the fact that we've had depreciation with the price of the dollar in terms of other currencies. In actual fact, when that happens, you should see, oil prices, the price of oil actually increase because you see increased demand for oil. But we're not seeing that in the markets. And that's just because the equities market is currently, facing it at the moment. And most investors are literally moving to safe haven assets. So that obviously affects or puts oil in the basket of those commodities that they usually run from.
I wonder where safe haven is now. Gold.
Gold is the one and major safe haven that most of these investors usually run to. But it's not a good time for some of those banks and even other banks that are not even yet affected. But some analysts came out to mention the fact that those two banks had it coming, with the sense that they were not as diversified as other banks. And the lessons that most of those banks learned from the 2008 recession was the fact that you need to diversify your assets and reduce your risk. They were mainly focused on the tech, market, and this would definitely affect, those African startups that,
Exactly. We were talking about that too yesterday. Because it's a global village. The world is a global village. So the spillover effect, especially for a country like Nigeria,
emerging markets.
Emerging market generally that depends so much
on those economies. And those are the people those are the countries that would, be hard hit. But all in all, it seems like the Biden administration and also the Fed chairman, they're trying to make sure that this effect dies down with those two banks and they can, save some of those. They also mentioned the fact that, they're not actually using taxpayers' money to solve that problem. I think they mentioned that they're using fees that the bank regulators do collect to solve the problem. And also, some of those investors have also mentioned that the U.S. Fed is to blame because of the hike in rates. But I'm sure,
I was going to say, it seems that's one good news coming from all of this, because then, remember Jerome Powell had talked about the hike coming back again aggressively.
Yes.
This might actually taper that. And then, of course, it's also...
It might. I don't think it would, change their status quo or whatever their plans are for the year, but it might reduce...
You don't think it will reduce the rate of hike?
It might reduce the rate of hike, but I think the trajectory or the hike that they already planned, the effect would still be there. But also they've mentioned that, they had signaled that the hike was coming, from last year and this year. So it was, the responsibility of those banks to make sure that, they brace themselves and protect themselves from the impact of the rate hikes.
All right. So what else is going on in the commodity space?
Well, with cocoa is great for us. According to the NBS report that was released in Q4, cocoa dominated the agricultural exports in Nigeria, which is great. I think they mentioned that superior quality cocoa products were, sold. I think about 45% to Netherlands and 10% to, 45 billion to Netherlands and 10 billion to Malaysia, which is great for us. And what this means is that, we're doing the right thing in the cocoa space, and going forward, we do expect that, our output keeps increasing, although the Wall Street Journal mentioned that our output is expected to decline, and obviously that's as a result of the realities that we're seeing in the Nigerian economy. But all in all, we're doing great in the cocoa space. We've seen dramatic improvement in that space coming from a few years back, and going forward, we just expect that, total production or total output in Nigeria increases significantly beyond the 280,000 metric tons that we had been doing so far.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of a conversation we had yesterday on Business Morning, the responsibility that is on the shoulder of incoming governors, because if you have our states, this cocoa and the other resources are in states.
I think what should be at the forefront of major governors is to look for how to generate revenue internally, and obviously that translates into the total, output of the Nigerian economy. So if it's a responsibility of those governors individually to make sure that the output from some of these states, it has increased significantly, it would more or less translate into increased GDP for the Nigerian economy,
for the Nigerian economy and the welfare of the people
as well.
And then people would not have to, do the urban migration because they're looking for jobs.
Yes.
Imagine a state like Ondo or Cross River State that are major in cocoa.
Yeah.
Imagine that you have a value chain that is well developed for cocoa.
Yeah.
And we're producing chocolates and chocolate drinks and all of that.
Yeah.
I'm sure the unemployment to mop up there will be
forward
really high.
Integration is really a problem for us in this country, and obviously that probably has to do with the fact that we lack infrastructure, we lack assets, we lack capital to invest in some of those in that particular value chain. But all in all, if some of these governors include plans to generate revenue, then in terms of using that revenue to fund such projects would, be the outcome of what would happen. But all in all, we just hope that whatever happens on Saturday, there's no violence involved, and it's free,
and there's
fair,
no vote buying,
and there's no vote buying, and because we're just
no
being
vote
pulled.
selling.
Yes, we're just being pulled back for so long, and it's just time to move ahead and put the elections behind us and just get back to business.
The economy has been at a standstill for months now.
For a while now, and it's not necessarily great. A lot of economies are already moving forward, despite the Ukraine war, despite the COVID situation, despite all of that. So it's time for Nigeria to get ahead and remain the giant of Africa.
All right, there's also the thing about soybean.
Yeah, so soybeans increased, and obviously it's one of our imports, not necessarily great for us. But all in all, that's the reality that we face because we don't actually produce, some of those particular products. And I'm sure we have the potential to, but we just don't. But yeah, so soybeans increased, and that's the impact that we're seeing within the economy.
And I wonder how, the Black Sea deal is supposed to be renewed, and that's still being on the case because Russia is asking for its own condition. I wonder what impact it will have, because I remember when the war started, we had a lot of issues with the price of wheat, especially, and all those other grains that come from.
We are still feeling the impact of those prices.
But I thought the deal brought a little bit of succor.
Yeah, it did, but wheat prices are still at record highs at $615 per bushel. a few years back, I think about pre-COVID, it traded at about 300, and you see it's doubled the price. So we're still there. Nothing drastic has brought the price down, and we'll still continue to feel the effect of that. Bread, the price of bread, you can obviously see that. Any individual within the economy can see that from the price of bread. It hasn't come down. It's still at about, it still ranges from about 800 almost to 1,000 naira per loaf. And so that already signals the fact that nothing has changed with the price, and we're still bearing the brunt as consumers of those particular products.
All right, just before we let you go, Naira appreciated. Was it because of the announcement?
Yes, so obviously that's great for us in terms of whatever situation that is happening with the cash crunch, but the appreciation wasn't so significant. We're still within the 755, 760 range, but it's good news that, you know, the Naira appreciated. The pressure on the dollar is up and down. We have situations, obviously now that, you know, we're introducing the old notes, it's expected that, you know, most people would run to the dollar. You know, they have the cash to run to the dollar now and more or less brace themselves for whatever they think.
More pressure, more demand.
It will be more pressure on the dollar. And obviously we've had the exchange rate pressures already looming in the economy, and that obviously affects the inflation numbers that is expected to come out very soon.
Yeah, you guys are still saying it's going to taper.
Well, it would be nice to see what happens mid-year, and that would inform what would happen towards the end of the year. And it would just be nice to see what the new administration does. So that would more or less signal how the economy would be going forward.
All right, thank you so much, Bolanle Agbaje, senior analyst at Financial Derivatives Company.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time this morning. Let's take a breather. We'll be back to head to other markets. Yeah, welcome back to Watch Your Business Morning here on Channels Television. I believe we have Kelly Agiga now out on the road to tell us the reaction to that CBN announcement that 501,000 naira can now, the old notes can now be used. Hello, Kelly. Where are you?
Well, Ini, I believe I didn't hear you very clearly, but perhaps we could just go ahead and just tell our viewers that we're right here at the Ikorodu area in Lagos, Nigeria, mainland Lagos, of course, just very close to the Mile 12 International Market. We can also tell our viewers that in this area we have a number of banks, and we have seen crowds gather at the bank. But this bank, for instance, where we are, take a look at the crowd just behind me. Take a look at the agitation. Take a look at what exactly is playing out here. They want to gain access into the banking hall. They desperately want to gain access to their cash. And this is coming, of course, more than 1 week after the CBN, more than 1 week after the Supreme Court judgment, of course. And then we now have the statement from the Central Bank of Nigeria, of course, instructing the commercial banks to go ahead with the old Naira notes. I have Mr. Joseph, who has only just used the banking hall a moment ago. Let's get to hear him share his experiences with us live here on Channels Television, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you for agreeing to speak with us live here on Channels TV. Talk to us, Mr. Joseph. You were just in the banking hall a moment ago. What currency were you able to withdraw? The new notes, the old note, and just how much?
I've just withdrawn 10,000 naira, old notes, just now. They have started giving old notes out. No new notes.
Only old notes.
Old notes. 10,000 naira that I received just now is this.
As a Nigerian, how do you feel that you're able to withdraw your money by yourself at this time?
Well, it is better now than previous weeks, because I went in straight and I complained. I said, they told me it's old note they will give. I accepted. They said they have started accepting it in the market. Then I had no other choice than to accept it.
All right, I'll need you to display this money on the screen so our viewers can have a clue that, of course, this is old notes, 500 naira old notes, and 10,000 naira. He's just been able to receive from the bank. 10,000. Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. Thank you for speaking with us here on Channels TV. So, Ini, that's the much of the updates we can bring to you now. But earlier on, I had cause as well to speak to one or two persons who are, of course, waiting waiting to gain access to the bank. I can also tell you that the numbers are increasing. Right now, we have almost 400 persons right here at this particular bank waiting to gain access into the banking hall. And that's also the story for most of the banks around these areas. I'm trying not to mention the banks around here. Of course, we do know why. But we have someone else who is also on the queue. He's number 314. I hope I got that correctly. Your number?
314.
314.
Yes.
Of course, you're still waiting to gain access into the bank. But are you excited that the CBN finally has called off, has decided rather to comply to the Supreme Court judgments?
Yes, I'm excited. But the issue here is that bank people are making it difficult for masses. You know, I've been here since 8 o'clock. Look at the time now. This is 11 o'clock. They can't be able to allow us to enter inside. And they're telling us they'll be disputing money inside there. But since up till now, I haven't entered. I don't even see money. The new this old Naira note they are talking about. So it's money and I'm stranded here. Frustrating. So look at where am I now? I don't know. Okay, the country here I'm seeing, I don't know how I can describe it. It's unfortunate for us in this country.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking with us on Channels TV. Well, we may have to leave it here for now, but that's the updates at this time. Mile 12 area, Ikorodu Road in Lagos, Nigeria. The banks around this area, crowds are gathering. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of fury, rage, annoyance because Nigerians are desperate. Lagosians are desperate to get cash.
All right, Kelly, thank you so much for that. I'm sure you will bring more updates subsequently here on Channels Television. So at least we see the old notes now back in circulation. We saw Mr. Joseph there. He was able to get 10,000. I know that a day before now, if you go to the bank, you'll be able to get about 3,000 Naira. But now at least he was able to get 10,000 Naira. So perhaps we would see that there'll be more cash going around. So now let's leave Kelly out on the road and get into the markets back here in the studio with Anite Edet. Anite, I know you don't have the old notes yet, or you're still doing your e-payment.
Actually, I have, what I have is a polymer version of the Naira, which is a 50 Naira. So the higher denominations, at the moment, I don't have it.
Anite, you like to complicate things.
No, not complicating. At least it got up to that point.
Okay,
so, but hopefully that maybe by the end of the day, I'll be heading to the bank and see what I can.
And join the queue. Perhaps you'll be number 700 by then.
No, I don't hope to have that number. I hope to be number 1.
All right.
So now we'll be telling you how the stock markets ended the first trading day of the second week of March. Now, what you see on the screen there, that's the color, red, a tad 0.01% drop. But in valuation term, that's about 3.34 billion naira, which is what you see there. And at the same time, the market's total value is just a drop, but 30.391 trillion naira. That's a little much, some impact, but not too much for the market. And that's no thanks to losses from 21 losers, led by, it was actually led by the Nigerian exchange group, but the impact was felt mostly due to Boa Foods, due to GTCO, Zenith Bank, and a host of others, which countered the gains from Boa Food. Now, let's take a look at the sectoral performance. What you see there, mostly negative, then flattish for the oil and gas, while consumer goods was the only gainer there. That impact was that's thanks to Boa Foods, as well as the activity chart where we saw also negative across the board. But let's talk to Oluwaseun Dosunmu, equity trader at Pattern Securities, to give us more insight into the market, particularly as we had some Q1 earnings results released to the market. So thank you for joining us, Oluwaseun.
Thank you. Good morning. Good to be here.
Yeah. Sorry. So I know we're starting a little bit late. But can you give us more details? We know that the market started off a little bit negative, but can you tell us more about the number of the earnings figures that were released to the market? Some earnings numbers released to the market. Just give us more details about this and how the market is acting right now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for your question. So basically, we've seen a lot of Q4 and full year numbers being released. And generally, the numbers have been quite good. Numbers that have not been good, obviously, they were affected by high finance costs. And that is not surprising because we know that in 2022, the the monetary policy rate was increased several times. And we know that it's way higher than how we started the year. I mean, it's about 16.5 now, 16.5%. And that actually affected companies' financials. So apart from that, generally, the numbers have been quite good. If you even look at the month of March, historically, you'd see that in the last 7 years, the month of March has actually closed in the positive just twice, which just means that basically the month of March is always a profit-taking month, having at the back of our minds that in January and February, most investors are always reacting to the fact that companies have released their earnings, that's positive earnings, and also dividend declaration. As we speak, we know that the current return for the month of March is just 3 basis points, 0.03%. If we look at the performance for the month of January, was 3.8%. For the month of March was 4.8% too. So you would see that investors are actually taking profits, especially those that started to take positions in the markets from November, December last year. But then one of the questions that comes to our minds is that apart from this, we've observed that there's a change, we're seeing a change in the dynamics of the markets. And what do I mean by that? I mean, we all know that now the market has been largely driven by domestic investors, and foreign investors have not been coming to our markets like the way they used to. So, and for the domestic investors, we're actually looking at inflation. I mean, inflation is at 21.8%, which means whatever investments you're making, you need to factor in that 21.8%.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the average yields in the markets in terms of the Nigerian Treasury bills yield, as at yesterday was at 3.6%. That's the average benchmark yields. Then the average benchmark yields for the bond market is at 33%. Now, looking at those numbers, you would see that those numbers, you still have negative when you factor in inflation.
Okay.
So actually, the equities market still gives you that opportunity to cover inflation and at a shorter period of time.
Okay.
So we will still continue to see position taken in the market. It's only that there's a mild pullback. I mean, if you look at the index is currently above 1,700, which is the highest in the last, I mean, even beyond the last 5 years. We're seeing that the market is making new high.
Okay, Oluwaseun, thank you so much. I know that you would have given us much information about the markets, both the fixed income market and equities, but time is definitely not on our side. But we thank you for that, and we'll keep it there, and we'll hope to have you some other time on the program. So that was Oluwaseun Dosunmu, equity trader at Pattern Securities, giving us more details about the equities market. So like he said, it was a bearish close for the fixed income market. In the unlisted securities market, it was bullish. So we keep our eyes on today's closing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anita, for that. Well, unfortunately, the crypto man will have to be here at 1:30 for Business Incorporated. We're not able to fit him into the program. But Laddie Williams will be here at 1:30 to give you update from the world of business. But I can tell you that it seems sentiment in the crypto space has improved. Bitcoin has recovered to about $24,000. And when I checked before the program started, so it seems that it's not all bad news, especially with the Silicon Valley Bank there. But that's where we'll end the program today. Another 55 minutes we've done. So we've done 110 minutes this week. We still have a whole lot more to go. We'll do it again tomorrow. God's grace. I'm John Mekwan. Do remember, as you go out there to make your money, stay safe and be peaceful.